public means of bike transportation on the city, and the system is composed of some stations, and these stations might have bicycles on them or maybe not. So knowing where the stations are and how many bicycles are or how many spots to park the bicycle, it's something that makes it really important to have awareness on the location of the stations and the availability. So that was just for setting up the context. So hello, I'm Lluís Esquerda, currently working at Scraping Hub, and I'm going to talk about how, I'm going to talk about how I managed to grow a project from, is it good? Yeah, okay. How I managed to grow a project from Barcelona to the whole world. And for the people that knew what bike sharing is, I want to share this map with you, if this works. With this, okay, yeah. This is a real-time map of the world. This is all the systems I currently support on my project, and every time, I don't know if you can see it, but every time there is an explosion on the map, it means that somebody has just took a bicycle or just left it on its real-time-ish. So yeah, as you can see, some guy there just left the bicycle, somebody took it there, and that's on the whole world, or on the whole world as in CityBikes can see. So we can't see the systems that are not on this map because they are not yet supported. So what's this about in reality? Many years ago, I had the not so novel idea of mixing up smartphones with these bike sharing systems. There were some applications, fortunately for me in Barcelona, there was no such Android application for the Bicing system. So I decided to create one, and the first step that I encountered was that this information was not available anywhere. So I looked on the internet for, I don't know, Bicing, API Bicing information. And that's the first time I saw the term scrapping. I will refer to the original library that inspired the project, because if it was not for this library, I would probably not be here. And that's also what got me into Python. So the main idea was there was a website for the Barcelona system, and there was a map, and you had to take this information from the JavaScript inside the map, so it was kind of hidden. And then I knew why some apps that were around were really slow, and it was because all the scraping thing was happening on the smartphones, and at that time smartphones were not really that powerful, so they were really slow, they would break and they would crash. So I created OpenBicing, which was the first part of the project. It had an open API, and it was also an Android application that was, I think it was licensed Apache 2. And that was for Barcelona. Then I realized that in Paris, the problem was exactly the same. Even though the website was even more complicated to scrape. But I created an exact clone of the same project, but I just renamed it OpenValid. And then I realized that it was also the case for Dublin. In fact, Dublin Bikes was using the exact same system that Belib was using. So it was really easy to add it, just 3 more lines of code. And then I had another project. Then London started their Cycle Hard project, which started with open information already that you could freely access. And I decided I also wanted to be there, so I created yet another clone of the same project. And at this point, it started getting really clear that this was not the best way to keep working, that it's not easy to keep separate projects at the same time. And then I decided to call it CityBikes, and it was the, CityBikes was the composite of all the cities that I started finding around. At this point, it was mostly the same Python library I had been using for the Bicing, but just with more and more networks kind of strapped together. So it still felt a bit like not doing a really good work on it, but on the outside it was good. There were many cities around, and so this is what CityBikes is composed of. The library was renamed to PyBikes. Basically, this is the main part of the whole project, and on PyBikes, people can, people or myself, we add new scrapers for all these bike sharing websites. And when you add it to PyBikes, then suddenly it gets added to the API of CityBikes. And so basically, PyBikes, in a sense, it's a Python library that gives you access to bike sharing information, but not dependent on my project at all, but it's the actual library we are using to extract all this information. Then this is called Gyro. It's not really something, it's just the system I'm using to manage all the tasks on the queue. So all the scraping tasks must be processed somehow, and I just wanted to show a bit of the stack of the project, not too much. Maybe the only novel thing is that this is using RQ instead of Celery, which is the main task processing system being used on the Python world. And then there is the API of the project. Fortunately for everybody in this room, this part of the library does not have a logo. And so the API, so since the project started, I mean, I was not really intending to build an API, but I knew that when you start sending information through the internet to a mobile device, it's almost impossible to protect it, so you better do it already open. And then the API kind of happened already, so it was already on the project, and it was the most important part. And in the end, there is also the Android application, which unfortunately I'm not spending much time anymore. And that's because of a realization I had that the Android application really does not produce any kind of new information or new content, whilst by using the API, we are providing something that can be used to create maps. So the main idea is maps are useful representations of reality, but they do not have the power of creating something new. So, and that's quite important to realize, because it's the point where you start understanding how wrong some city councils are about things, and how things should be done in a different way. For instance, since publishing this API, there is a People app for getting your bike sharing information. There is a Google Glass app. There is City Mapper, which is, if I know already, they are using the CityBikes API for Barcelona, Sao Paulo, and 2 or 3 more cities, I don't know. But basically, these are cities where they have problems accessing information, so by providing it, they can support it. These are 2 apps. One is GPL designs it, the other one it's MIT. But it's good. I mean, it's good to have applications that are open source or free software using the API, because they are continuing the work I started, and I don't really have to support all these many platforms. There is even one app called CityBikes. I've not even gotten in contact with a guy, but just decided to put the name. There is an app for Windows Phone. So I mean, there was no way I was going to support any of these, all of these platforms. It will be a waste of time. And back to the growth thing, I would like to say that it's been a good and calm and steady thing to do. But, and we hear many words around Splash, like smart cities and open data. And we are really content and so happy about all these terms. But in the end, they do not mean anything if you are not actually providing what people need. So there are some cities are starting to provide open data, and that's a good thing. But there are going to be lots of cities that maybe it will take 10 years for them to even know that they should be doing it, or maybe they don't have any kind of reinforcement of doing it, so maybe they will never do it. And that's where I met the evil part of the project. It's called PPPs. These are called as public-private partnerships. So basically, this relation happens every time a company goes to offer a public service. So a private company is going to offer a public service for a government or for a city council. And so when the city council gets a contract to work with these guys, the information usually stays with the private part and not with the public part. So somehow we could consider that these companies are blackmailing city councils for the information they should already own. So let's say you are a city council, you have just opened a bike sharing system, and you say, well, okay, I want to build an Android app. And they cannot, because they do not have the rights to access this information. But the company obviously is really happy to provide them with an app that obviously it will be overpriced. So I like to think that CityBike somehow could be a key contributor on this ride, in the sense that the project kind of forces companies and city councils to get it together. So by providing a reality that it's not there anymore, it's not still there, sorry. At some point they are forced to do it, just because they have no other option. The information is already on the net and people are using it. There are many applications using it. So they kind of are forced to release it, or yeah. So I just read, obviously I'm going to misquote here, so obviously the article does not have anything to do with even the theme of this presentation, but I think it's a nice quote. So I think we should develop our software and choose our licenses for the future we want to see, not the present that we are stuck with. And this has been a major part of what the project is about. So it's not just about going around scraping websites, putting information out and everything. So it's more about trying to create an image of how the world would look like if this information was free. And I'm not even talking about bicycles right now, but just any kind of information that it's not sensible to user privacy, that can be useful for anybody to build things. And I think that this map kind of could be that metaphor. I mean, we are seeing the world, we are seeing the people use bicycles everywhere, and the only way to do it is if you just release all this information. So that's mainly that was it. Thank you.
Hello. Okay, so now I have time for questions. Oops, sorry.
How I am on time?
Pretty early, quite good.
Like?
So we still have probably 10, 15 minutes more.
15?
Yep.
Okay. So what do you say if we add the Bilbao bike share system to CityBikes? Yeah? Okay. So I've been looking around. It looks like they've been publishing this, so this information is open. So let's just go to, no, not this one, open. They release this information for free. What I found out that it's quite funny, they also have an Android app that it's not using the open data feed, but that it does provide a bit more of information. But anyway, for the sake of doing things the way it should be done, we are just going to use the public feed. Okay, it's here. It's in CSV, XML, or WMS. So what sucks less than the free? XML, I guess. So just going to show a bit of how how easy it is, or maybe how hard it is, I don't know, to add a new system to bikes. So these are the spiders, and then there is another data folder that maps meta information to these spiders. So in the case of Bilbao, because they are providing an open data feed that probably we're not going to be able to reuse ever, because this is a format that they are only going to release for Bilbao, I will have to create a new file. We'll call it Bilbao. And because I don't really know what I'm doing, I'm just going to look at other spiders at the same time. So we can, so there is a basic class that inherits from bike sharing system. So in this case, it will be Bilbao Bici, I think it is, bike share system. And we can get some parameters, we can add some meta information there. So there are some things that are already being published on the API, and they are important to, if they appear here, like which is the company running it, or maybe they have a license or something. So this just goes here. And and goes well with the API. By the way, so the idea of PyBikes is fuck. So basically, you import PyBikes. PyBikes get any kind of bike sharing system you want. Let's say Bicing. You obviously have to put it somewhere, and then you update it, and suddenly it has stations on it. So FOSS station in Bicing station, Sprint station, for instance. And it's like that. You don't have to do anything. This is not a wrapper around my API. So if anybody here is doing data science or things like that in Python, give the library a try, because it's quite easy to use, and it contains all the resources you need to create whatever you want to do related to bike sharing information. 10 minutes. Okay. Okay, so I think it's better we just go to question time. If you are really interested in knowing how a system is out to the library, we can talk it later, or I can show it to you.
Anyone who wants the microphone?
Thanks for the talk. It's awesome. Did you get into any legal issues with the companies that own the data that you're scraping? Did you get like any cease and desist letters and stuff like that? Or
I think I completely forgot to add that slide, and it was a quite important part of it. So for that, I'm sorry to the audience. Yeah, we've got into some trouble sometimes, but the good thing is by publishing this information and having all this small army of developers writing stuff for it, the only guy that's going to look good bad on the paper are always going to be them. So usually they always try to avoid any kind of conflict. There was a conflict with JCDecaux in France, where they sent me a cease and desist letter for all the prejudices that the project was causing them, because they were actually planning on selling all this information to any company that wanted to run analysis on it. So I don't know, but the menace of all the loss I was causing them was valued in around, I don't know, I think it was around 30,000 euros per year. But then a new law passed by in France, where all public infrastructure, well, or private companies providing public services are almost forced to publish this information, and they even released a license for it. So in the end, it worked okay. Then there was another cease and desist from Brisbane. There was another guy from from Sweden that he had like a partnership with Clear Channel to be the sole developer of the app. So I think they kind of made a deal with him that he would make the app for free. In exchange, he would be the only exploiter of this feed of the information. And I exchanged some really angry words with him on Twitter and through email and everything, and it really did not fix. And so I just decided to forget about the city, and it's not on the map anymore. So before I was talking about what's a map and what's information and what's create something. So for instance, if we go to Bicimat, which is the bike sharing system in Madrid right now, they've gone as far away as creating a PNG map, so scrappers will not get this information. So, yeah, Well, no, what would be easier is to break their Android app and actually access their API, but the last time that happened, hell broke loose and many vulnerabilities were discovered on their systems. So I think I'm letting this case rest for at least 1 year or two until they forget who I am. But yeah, these have been the problems so far. Another funny problem I've had so far is in getting people using my API to properly reference back the project, because if not, the message of the project gets completely lost. And people just start assuming that this information is already freely available. When it's not, we are going to great lengths to create this database of information just to provide them with a source when there is not a source. But it's really important that they say where the information comes from, because if not, just information is there, so we don't have to fix anything because it's already open and we are in the future, and we are not.
So thank you for the talk. My name is Wojtek. It was really great to learn about the bicycles, but your message is also that there is some extra data about the cities, like the open data and other systems that provide not only information about the bicycle stations, but you mentioned there is also some other piece of information. Could you give me an example what else you could scrap from the data that is provided by city councils, etc.?
I don't actually think I said that, and if I said that, I was misusing my own words myself. I said that you mean while I was pretending to write the system for Bilbao, I said something about the company and everything, or no?
No. I mean the data that you are presenting in your wrappers is about mainly bicycles.
Yeah.
But what I understood is that the message of this is that this data should be open, and sometimes the city councils are providing already some APIs about the cities, not only about the bicycles.
Yeah.
So my question is,
okay,
is there any other piece of information, I don't know, like the paths of the buses that you could track in this way? And
well, there is many people. I mean, lately there's been lots of maps showing. Thank you for the question. There's been many maps showing real-time tracks of underground trains, buses, and everything, and people love this kind of maps. So this information is available, I think, on the UK at least, and in the US in some parts. Cities usually are just able to publish rubbish information that people cannot really create anything with. Like, I don't know, the public webcams of traffic, or so usually there is not much to get from open data portals, and that's a problem. In fact, I've been discussing it with them, because they started really excited on the hype of the open data thing. They completely believed everything that happened, and then nothing happened. And nothing happened first because it was hype. Second, because there are companies really interested in selling big data solutions. So suddenly they tell the city councils that they have a big data problem and that they need a solution for that. And that's not true. But still, it wins good money. And so in the end, some city councils have started just releasing different apps, and we must consider that every time they release an app, there's going to be a public feed about that. But what I was trying to convince them is they should really stop doing apps, because they really suck at doing it. So what they should be is just providing information, and obviously not just that, but every time they have a contract with a private company, there should be somebody there that knows, understands something, so they are able to get a more fair agreement that the other way they would not get, I think. So just yesterday, by looking on how I will scrape just integrate the bike sharing feed from Bilbao, I was looking for the name of the company providing the service, and there was no way of finding it. In the end, I arrived at a PDF explaining the elicitation for the project, so the company was there. But the company, it's not actually the company providing the service, it's a consultancy company that is subcontracting different companies to build the application to provide the feeds. And so it's really, public projects are like this, they are really ugly, and we already know it, so yeah.
Okay, we have 3 minutes.
Hey, have you tried having a look at OpenStreetMap's data to see if you can get locations for bicycle stations from there?
In fact, I tried to contribute back all the stations I have to OpenStreetMaps, but the thing is, I could only contribute the ones that come from a source that it's not liable of prosecution. So what I'm really interested in right now in OSM, it's integrating their information. Usually I do not need the information from the whole world, but just from the actual cities I have, so I can get bicycle paths, or I can get the altitude of the stations. So maybe I can enhance somehow the API, because right now the API, the good thing is it's a cohesive syntax for an object, let's say for a station and everything, and that's what developers like. They write an application for their city and suddenly they have support for the whole world, and that's a good thing. But in the end, what my API is offering, it's just a reformulation of the original information. So what would be really cool would be to enhance this information, and it's something I'm looking into.
Thank you.
We still have 1 minute for a really short question, if there is any. Okay, let's thanks this. Oh, sorry.
Hi. One technical question. Where do you run all the scrapers? Do you run it on Amazon Web Services or something like this, or is it your own server somewhere in data center?
Yeah, I have two Linode virtual machines and then a dedicated OVH, which does not have much CPU power, but lots of disk and RAM. So I'm trying to stick to the rule of that I want to do all the parts of it, and that's a problem because it's difficult, but I really wanted to learn. So these different servers are interconnected in a VPN. They also have Tor exit nodes on the insides, and then there is Redis somewhere, database somewhere, and then there is the serving part, which is done with Nginx.
Okay, so let's thank the speaker again. Next.